And finally, labor freedom. We're using World Bank data again here. We're looking at how easy it is to hire individuals, how easy it is to fire individuals, but also more fundamentally, do individuals have the right to sell their labor anywhere they want to, or withhold it if they want to. So a very broad-based indicator of labor freedom. As I said, we score individually in each of these areas. We average those scores, and every country then gets an overall score in a ranking. This slide shows the distribution of economic freedom around the world. You can see the darker the score, the better the level of economic freedom, the darker the shading of the country. And you'll see that the countries of Europe do pretty well. You can see Poland there in a sort of light blue, which places it in the mid-range of countries. I could call your attention to the countries around the rim of the Pacific Ocean. You'll see very high levels of economic freedom in countries around the Pacific, in all continents that border that ocean. And indeed, that's one of the most vibrant areas for economic freedom and economic activity right now. Why does any of this make a difference? Well, I think economic freedom is a fundamental human right in and of itself. Certainly, it's something that empowers individuals, and I think is a basic, fundamental building block, foundation of freedom in general. But yeah, it's also important for a lot of other reasons that have to do with human well-being. For example, how does economic freedom relate to wealth or income? In this case, we looked at gross domestic product per capita, which is on the vertical axis, and then our index scores are on the horizontal axis. You can see that as economic freedom increases, levels of gross domestic product per capita increase. And indeed, for countries in the middle of the scale, about 60 there, which happens to be just about where Poland is, so you can see that the slope of the curve is starting to rise very rapidly at that point. And that would indicate that very small policy adjustments that would lead to increases in economic freedom could potentially have big impacts on levels of gross domestic product per capita. Another way of looking at the relationship between gross domestic product and economic freedom, we've divided our index into groupings of countries, and you'll see that the countries that are the freest have per capita incomes that are 10 times higher than per capita incomes in the repressed economies. We wanted to see if there was a relationship between economic freedom and democracy. And we found an index of democracy, democratization at the Economist Intelligence Unit. And we ran a correlation between our index scores, economic freedom scores, and democracy. You'll see there's a very strong correlation there. I want to emphasize that it's a correlation. It's not showing causation here. And you could argue either way, which way the causation goes. It may be that democracy leads to greater economic freedom. My own view is that economic freedom is the basis. By empowering individuals, you help them not only become economically self-sufficient, but you empower them politically as well to demand and then protect their civil and political rights as well. So I think economic freedom is a very important foundation for democracy. But you can certainly argue the causation the other way. In any case, there's a strong correlation between the two. We wanted to see about other kinds of social indicators, not just income or wealth. We found an index of human development produced by the UN Development Program, the United Nations Youth Development Program. And we found that there was a very strong relationship between economic freedom and high levels of human development. That index is measuring things like maternal mortality, child welfare, health care, a variety of social indicators. And again, countries with high levels of economic freedom do a better job of promoting or protecting the human development of their populations. charge that the free market capitalist system is a good system for the rich, but not such a good system for the poor. And so we wanted to see if there was a relationship between economic freedom and poverty levels. So we found a poverty index. This again is produced by the United Nations Development Program. The index generally measures the percentage of a country's population that is in poverty, considered to be in poverty. And what we found in the graph in this chart is, if you look at the top line there, all countries indeed are doing quite well in reducing poverty. Over the last 10 years, we've seen poverty drop almost 5% on average worldwide. I think that's reflective of the buoyant economic system we've enjoyed, the great progress, globalization, free trade, a lot of factors that have increased wealth around the world. But you see down in the fourth line down, that the countries that gained economic freedom, significant amounts of economic freedom, in this case at least 5 points, did even better in reducing poverty, moving almost 6% of their populations on average out of poverty. By contrast, the countries that lost economic freedom, and this would be the bottom line in the chart, countries that lost at least 5 points of economic freedom on our scale, actually saw poverty increase in their countries. That 0.4 here at the bottom represents about a 0.5% increase of their population living in poverty. So I was very heartened by these results that show economic freedom good not only for the rich, but also for the poor. Finally, we wanted to look at environmental performance. That's a very important issue these days, an important issue of domestic political debate in all of our countries and also international discussion. And again, we found a good correlation between environmental performance, the protection of the environment. This was an index produced by the Yale Center for Environmental Law and Policy. And we ran the correlation and found a high degree of correlation between environmental protection and economic freedom. You'll see that the very freest countries performed slightly less well than those that are mostly free. And I have to tell you reluctantly that that's because of my own country, the United States, which is in that top category, and whose score brought that particular average down a little bit. But still, if you look at all of the different types of countries, you see a good correlation between economic freedom and protection of the environment.